Denzel Washington sits down for what seems like a normal conversation, but the energy feels different from the start. The host introduces him not as a movie star, but as a man known for wisdom, discipline, and strong values. Denzel listens carefully, calm and focused, before speaking. When he finally talks, his voice is steady, not angry, not loud, but very serious. He makes it clear that this conversation is not meant to attack anyone, especially not women. Instead, he says this is about truth, responsibility, and how modern society has slowly changed the meaning of value in relationships. He explains that many people today are chasing attention instead of growth, and praise instead of purpose. Denzel pauses and says something that immediately grabs attention. We live in a time where everyone wants to be the prize, but very few want to build real value. The room goes quiet as his words sink in. He adds that what he is about to share may sound uncomfortable, but comfort has never created strong people or strong relationships. This opening sets the tone for a deep and honest discussion, making the audience curious and emotionally ready for what comes next. Denzel takes a moment before continuing, as if choosing his words with care. He explains that he has lived long enough to see different generations rise and fall, and with each generation, values slowly change. He says he has watched how relationships, respect, and responsibility were once taken very seriously, but today they are often treated like trends that can be replaced overnight. Speaking from his fictional life experiences, he shares that fame taught him one important lesson. People listen more to success than to wisdom, even when success comes without character. He talks about how being admired by millions did not protect him from personal struggles, mistakes, or moments of self-doubt. Denzel admits that growth only came when he held himself accountable instead of blaming others. He explains that this is the reason he speaks carefully on sensitive topics. He knows how easily words can be misunderstood, especially in a world driven by short clips and viral headlines. He says he is not interested in pleasing everyone, because pleasing people often means hiding the truth. Instead, he believes in speaking honestly, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Denzel adds that real wisdom comes from experience, not opinions, and from discipline, not ego. This part of the conversation builds a deeper connection with the audience, showing that his message is not based on judgment, but on years of learning, failing, and growing. The audience begins to understand that his words are coming from reflection, not arrogance, setting the foundation for the stronger points he's about to make. Denzel leans forward slightly and explains that the idea of the prize has been completely misunderstood in modern society. He says that today many people believe being the prize means being admired, desired, or constantly praised. Social media, he explains, has turned value into numbers like likes, followers, and attention. According to Denzel, this has created a dangerous mindset where people expect respect without earning it and demand commitment without offering effort. He calmly says that real value is not something you claim with words. It is something you prove through behavior, consistency, and character. He continues by explaining that being the prize was never about gender. It was always about responsibility. In his fictional reflection, he shares that strong relationships are built when both people focus on becoming better, not on being worshipped. Denzel points out that when someone believes they are already the prize, they stop growing, stop listening, and stop improving. He says this mindset slowly kills love, respect, and partnership. His tone remains steady and thoughtful as he reminds the audience that real worth is built quietly through discipline, loyalty, and emotional maturity. By the end of this part, the audience is no longer thinking about who the prize is, but whether they themselves are building any real value at all. Denzel continues the conversation by talking about how modern relationships are struggling under the weight of unrealistic expectations. He explains that many people enter relationships not to build something together, but to receive something without giving much in return. In today's world, he says, love is often measured by how someone makes you feel, not by how you grow together. Denzel shares fictional but relatable examples of couples who walked away not because love was gone, but because ego became louder than understanding. He explains that people now expect perfection from their partners while refusing to work on their own flaws. He adds that social media plays a major role in this problem by showing only highlights, never the hard work behind strong relationships. According to Denzel, many people compare their real lives to someone else's edited image, which creates disappointment and resentment. He says respect cannot survive where expectations are one-sided. Real partnership, he explains, is about patience, compromise, and shared responsibility. Denzel reminds the audience that love is not found in constant excitement, but in consistency during difficult moments. This part of the discussion makes it clear that many relationships fail not because people are incompatible, but because they were never willing to grow together in the first place. Denzel takes a deeper tone as he begins to speak about accountability, calling it one of the most uncomfortable but necessary parts of growth. He explains that many people today prefer to see themselves as victims because it removes the pressure to change. According to him, it feels easier to blame society, culture, or the opposite gender than to look inward. Denzel says that when a person avoids responsibility, they also block their own progress. In his fictional reflection, he shares that every real transformation in his life started when he stopped asking who was wrong and started asking what he could do better. He continues by explaining that a victim mindset may bring temporary comfort, but it slowly destroys confidence and self-respect. Denzel calmly states that truth often sounds like an insult to those who are not ready to grow. He reminds the audience that accountability does not mean self-hate, it means self-awareness. When people accept their mistakes, they gain power over their future. This part becomes a turning point in the conversation, pushing the audience to reflect on their own habits, choices, and excuses. By the end of this segment, the message is clear. Growth begins the moment excuses end. Denzel slowly explains that accountability is the one thing most people run away from, even though it is the key to real change. He says that in today's world, many people are taught to protect their feelings instead of correcting their behavior. Because of this, the victim mindset has become very common. According to Denzel, when someone always believes they are the victim, they never feel the need to improve themselves. They start believing that life is unfair only to them, and everyone else is the problem. He calmly explains that this mindset may feel safe, but it quietly keeps people stuck in the same place for years. He continues by saying that taking responsibility does not mean accepting blame for everything, but it does mean being honest about your own role in your failures. In his fictional reflection, Denzel shares that there were times in his life when it was easier to blame pressure, people, or circumstances. But the moment he chose accountability, his life began to change. He explains that accountability gives a person control, while the victim mindset takes it away. When you stop blaming others, you stop giving them power over your growth. Denzel also points out that many people confuse accountability with weakness, when in reality, it takes courage to admit mistakes. He says strong people are not those who never fail, but those who learn without making excuses. According to him, growth feels uncomfortable because it forces you to face parts of yourself that you would rather ignore. That is why truth often sounds harsh, even when it is meant to help. Denzel calmly states that being offended does not mean the message is wrong. It often means it touched something real. As he continues, he explains that the victim mindset slowly damages self-respect. When people keep telling themselves that nothing is their fault, they also tell themselves that they have no power to change anything. Over time, this creates frustration, anger, and bitterness. Denzel reminds the audience that accountability is not about judging yourself, but about improving yourself. It is the difference between asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and asking, "What can I learn from this?" He ends this part by saying that real maturity begins when excuses stop. The moment a person accepts responsibility for their choices, they also open the door to growth, stronger relationships, and real confidence. This message lands quietly but heavily, encouraging the audience to reflect on their own mindset and decisions. Denzel gently shifts the conversation toward faith and personal discipline, explaining that real strength begins on the inside. He says that values do not change just because culture does. In his view, principles like honesty, patience, and humility remain powerful no matter the generation. Denzel shares a fictional reflection about mentors and elders who taught him that discipline is a form of self-respect. He explains that when a person learns to control their actions, emotions, and desires, they stop looking for validation from the outside world. He continues by saying that faith is not just about belief, but about behavior. According to Denzel, many people talk about values but live without them. He explains that discipline is what keeps a person grounded when attention, temptation, or pressure tries to pull them off track. Denzel calmly states that humility attracts real respect, while pride only attracts attention. He reminds the audience that people who know who they are do not need to prove it loudly. As the conversation deepens, Denzel explains that faith and discipline work together to shape character. He says that when a person commits to growth, their relationships also improve. They become more patient, more understanding, and more reliable. This part of the story brings a sense of calm and clarity, reminding the audience that real value is built privately through daily choices and quiet discipline, not through public approval. Denzel senses the weight of the conversation and takes time to clarify his message. He explains that his words are not meant to attack women or men, but to challenge harmful thinking that has quietly become normal. He says that truth is often mistaken for hate when it does not match popular opinions. In his fictional reflection, Denzel shares that he has great respect for strong women and believes that strength comes from character, not attitude. He explains that when people twist honest conversations into conflict, real progress is lost. He continues by addressing how social media often turns serious discussions into short, dramatic clips that remove context. According to Denzel, this creates division where understanding should exist. He says many people react without listening and judge without thinking. Denzel calmly reminds the audience that hard truth is uncomfortable, but it is necessary for growth. Avoiding difficult conversations may protect feelings for a moment, but it damages future relationships. As he moves toward the end of this part, Denzel emphasizes that strong men and strong women are not in competition with each other. They are meant to build together, not tear each other down. He expresses concern for younger generations who are learning about love, value, and identity from trends instead of wisdom. This clarification brings balance to the message, making it clear that the goal is understanding, accountability, and growth, not division or blame. Denzel now speaks directly to the audience, his tone calm but firm. He says that too many people are living their lives chasing validation instead of purpose. They measure their worth by attention, approval, and how others see them, instead of who they are becoming. Denzel explains that this constant need for validation creates insecurity and disappointment, because no amount of praise can replace inner confidence. He encourages people to stop waiting for someone else to define their value. He continues by saying that real worth is shown through actions, not words. According to Denzel, a valuable person is someone who can be trusted, who shows up consistently, and who takes responsibility even when it is difficult. He reminds the audience that relationships are not about being admired, but about being reliable. In his fictional reflection, he says that many people want love, respect, and commitment, but are unwilling to offer the same in return. As he closes this message, Denzel urges viewers to take an honest look at themselves. He asks them to question whether they are becoming better partners, better leaders, and better individuals. He says growth does not happen by accident. It happens by choice. This final wake-up call leaves the audience feeling challenged but motivated, pushing them to reflect on their own mindset, habits, and direction in life. As the conversation comes to an end, Denzel pauses for a moment, letting the weight of his words settle. He speaks softly but firmly, saying that life will always challenge people with choices, distractions, and pressures. He reminds the audience that true strength is not in winning attention or admiration, but in holding oneself accountable, staying disciplined, and living with integrity. Denzel emphasizes that the path to real respect and meaningful relationships is quiet and often invisible. It is shown through consistent actions, not loud declarations. He shares a fictional reflection that many people miss this truth because they are too focused on the outside world, chasing validation and recognition, while neglecting their inner growth. According to Denzel, the real prize in life is not a person, a title, or wealth. It is the character one builds, the values one upholds, and the responsibility one accepts. He ends with a short but powerful line that resonates. Become the person you respect, and everything else will follow. The host thanks him, acknowledging that the conversation was uncomfortable but necessary, and the story closes with a reflective, thoughtful tone. The audience is left to consider their own lives, choices, and values, feeling both challenged and inspired to grow. This final segment ties together all the lessons shared throughout the discussion, leaving a lasting impact without creating drama or exaggeration.